This is Education Sector Television International, ESTV. It is a wet afternoon, but the business of the day is ongoing. I welcome you all to another edition of One Citizen of Greater Values. Today, I have with me in the studio a role model, a well put together person. She is a lawyer, a consultant, a poet, and a writer. The third female president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Do join me to welcome Mrs. Toki Mabogunje of Toki Mabogunje and Associates. Good afternoon, ma.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good to have you in the studio, ma.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation.
Ma, I really appreciate this honor.
Thank you.
Yes. Probably I have not captured your profile fully,
Hmm.
and I would like to do that with my very first question. Who is Mrs. Toki Mabogunje?
All right. So, in brief, Toki Mabogunje is a lawyer by profession. So, I was first called to the Nigerian bar 43 years ago. So, I've been a lawyer for a long time. I spent my first 9.5 years working for the Federal Ministry of Justice. So, I worked in civil service. And in that capacity, I worked in a variety of roles, including being assistant legal advisor to the Ministry of Defense. Um, I left the civil service to move into private sector. And in doing that, I moved to the media sector. So the government of Nigeria had just privatized private television stations and radio stations. I had given out 16 licenses for that. So I joined the foundation team of professionals that started the Minaj Media Group.
Okay.
So I joined the Minaj Media Group as company secretary, legal advisor, and head of corporate affairs. And within about 3 or 4 years, decided on a change of career. I was much more interested in the business side of things, wanted to understand the business of broadcasting. And I went away to Stanford University. I did some executive management programs in strategy and organization, and was then appointed, just as we got our satellite license in Minaj, I was appointed the head of the North American Directorate. So I went out to the United States of America to start to stream Nigerian programming
Yeah, what's
for
an opportunity?
Nigerians in diaspora and people of African descent.
Okay.
And I did that for a few years. And then in the year 2000, based on my experience in America and how the American environment supports business people and enables them to succeed,
Mhm.
I decided I wanted to do the same thing in Nigeria.
Okay.
So in January 2000, I set up Toki Mabogunje and Co. as a small and medium enterprise development consultant. And I've been doing that for 24 years now.
Wow. For 24 years. Yes, I believe you've actually contributed to the growth of SMEs in Nigeria.
Thank you.
Let's share your experience.
Okay, so my experience in this area is that I set up the consulting firm first as a sole practitioner and then as a partnership. So I have other partners. It's essentially really a family business. So I work with my brother, who is a managing consultant, and more recently, about 7 years ago, my son joined in as our chief technology officer. And in this area, I have worked with a lot of international development partners, the World Bank, the IFC, British Council,
As a consultant?
GIZ, yes. And my specialty with them is that those programs they have in private sector development, I serve as a consultant for them. UN Women, Center for International Private Enterprise, they're quite a number. I mean, it's 24 years, so they're quite a number. But as I worked as a consultant, I started to feel a bit of dissatisfaction on the policy side. Because even when the programs are designed and set up and then implemented in the Nigerian environment, and you see the things that are not going well with policy. The business environment is not the best for businesses to grow. So I started wanting to have a voice.
Can you give an instance of what actually disturbed you?
Well, we can have examples like, for example, for a very long time, access to finance was
Okay.
a really terrible issue. It still is, right? We haven't gone far enough, but things are not as bad as they were 24 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is why we hear about the fintech unicorns and some of the success stories that we hear about. Multiple taxation is an issue. But hopefully, with the current tax reform committee headed by Mr. Taiwo Idili, maybe things will get better. So it's things like that. And so I've decided that to have a voice, I have to get involved in policy development and advocacy. So I started volunteering in various membership organizations.
Okay.
So I joined the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I joined the National Association for Small and Medium Enterprises. I joined NECA's Network of Entrepreneurial Women. I joined WIMBIZ. I joined WISCA. I'm in quite a few
Okay, with
organizations.
all of these agencies, did you succeed
Well, these are
to influence the policies?
So these are member organizations.
Okay.
Advocacy is a long-term thing. Like I tell people, as women, we take for granted the power that we have to vote in today's world.
Mm.
But it took 100 years for it to happen. And some women lost their lives along the way.
Mm.
So advocacy is never short term. Sometimes in the short term, there'll be some shifts, there'll be some changes. But it's usually a long term work. So I must say that by engaging, two things happened. By engaging in these business member organizations as a volunteer, I started to rise in the leadership of those organizations. And by rising in leadership, I actually started engaging in advocacy, stakeholder um, meetings, public private dialogues, advocacy campaigns. And I must say that there are quite a few that we won, For example, the Lagos, I'll talk about more recent things. For example, the Lagos um, Chamber of Commerce and Industries push around the land use charge, if you remember, not too long ago, if you remember, we won that battle, for example.
Okay.
And we were able to show government that a different approach needed to be taken. So yeah, so there are those things. There are some things that you don't win totally. So, when there was the clampdown by the National Assembly on women's rights, when women associations were trying to push for the gender bill, which was going to allow them certain rights. There was a shutdown by the legislature. They pushed back against these things. So women then had to occupy the National Assembly around the time of the International Women's Day to begin to make their voices louder, which led to the legislature saying, okay, we will revisit about 4 or 5 of your requests, some of which eventually passed through. But really, the rest of it is still on the table and I know that the National Assembly is considering it now. So it's been not totally satisfying, but there is a great deal of what I would call a self-satisfaction that comes from being on the battlefield and fighting for the rights and fighting for what you believe in, right? And my battle is generally around a conducive business environment for all businesses in Nigeria to thrive.
Thank you so much, ma'am. But as we speak, the SMEs are still, majority of them are still having serious challenges. Majority of them are not successful. They are not achieving what they should achieve. And I want to believe that. Are there certain things that they are not doing correctly on their individual businesses? Have you experienced some?
Okay, so there are many, many reasons why those SMEs that are not doing well, there are many reasons why they don't do well. So one of the factors we talked about, the environment. Right? If the environment is harsh, is hostile, is not conducive, it will affect how you succeed in your business. The other factor is you yourself, as the owner of the business and the entrepreneur. How prepared are you for managing a business? Thank God today we have a lot of institutions and organizations in Nigeria now, and let me focus on Lagos since that is where we are, that are actually existing to establish programs that builds the capacity of entrepreneurs. So many are known, like the Enterprise Development Center of the um, Atlantic University of Lagos, what everybody calls it, quote, the Lagos Business School, because it's not easy
Okay.
to remember it that way.
Yes, it's a
But then
common one.
there's an
The
Enterprise
Lagos Business
Development
School.
Center there,
Yes.
there's Fage Foundation.
Mhm.
There are quite a few. There are quite a few avenues now for people to engage. So that as a consultant for um, SMEs, we encourage them to go to these places to get what we call entrepreneurship training. Because the fact that you are an architect, a great engineer, a great teacher, does not make you a great business person. You really need to learn about managing business. But on my own part, we are called BDSPs, so business development service providers. We nurture SMEs. And so we ourselves are also engaged in coaching them, in training their staff. So, yes, the owners of the business must be trained, and so also their staff.
Mhm.
So, that's another thing. Another big factor are the support structures that they're supposed to have in order to succeed. So, banking and finance, how much are the banks actually supporting SMEs? And there's a big conversation there because SMEs, today they're accessing it better than they did 20 years ago. I've been in the business 24 years, right? However, there are still some constraints. So, because a lot of small businesses, for example, don't keep very good records about their businesses, the banks find it difficult to lend, and that's a given. But when you even look at the medium businesses that keep good records, our banks don't have a risk appetite. So they don't want to deal with anything that looks very risky to them.
Even the
They need
soft
some
loan to the
assurance.
SMEs.
And there's really nothing like a soft loan. There's the situation is I give you money, you need to pay it back.
A little amount, that's what I meant.
There's nothing that's little because if I give what 1,000 naira, right, and I give you the 100 people, it's 100,000 naira. It's no longer a little money. So no matter how much money you're giving, right, you have to look at the volume of where it's going to and the impact of that not coming back. So, and this is why I'm coming to structure. So there are things that are disturbing also the financial industry from performing properly. For one, we're supposed to have a credit system that that supports and enables the development of businesses, right? So you need to have these credit agencies that at the press of a button, if the bank gets an application from Mrs. Onobanjo or Mrs. Mabogunje to borrow whatever amount of money it is, they should be able to see what your credit history is like.
A data.
Is she a good borrower? Has she been paying back her other loans? But those things
Or
are
is
not
she a
yet on.
first timer?
Is she a what?
A first timer
Or is she a
that
first-
she's seeking for the
Well,
very
the
first
bank, the
time?
bank will know if you're seeking for the first time.
Okay.
What they don't do is whether you have gone to owe somebody somewhere else.
Oh,
Right? So what that credit agency does is that it has your record on how you normally borrow, right? Or how you owe.
but do they have this data at their fingertips?
The thing is that there is a process to collecting data, right? So one, the banks need to be using them more. Two, the prospective customers need to be registered with them. They need to have their data so that each time, so merchants, so for example, MTN now would use it, right? And so if you are owing them, they might report that you are owing and how much you are owing or how long you've been owing. So that when your bank also has an issue with you, when they check with the credit agencies, they can see that, you know what, she's also owing MTN. She has not paid,
Paid.
and so
Okay.
on. Because this is what makes it easy to. People keep saying, "Oh, it's so easy to borrow when you're abroad. It's better managed." No, the systems are in place. Let's look at another scenario. Agriculture, for example, that is actually a risky business everywhere in the world. It's not only Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
You need the guarantee, agri guarantee schemes,
Okay.
so that the government is actually putting up money and saying that for this amount of money, they would guarantee that if anything untoward should happen to the harvest of this specific farmer, the bank is protected up to the value of so much. Agricultural credit schemes, and we do have the agricultural credit scheme set up by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Um, there needs to be more information about it. It needs to be funded more, so that there's more money to cover more people.
And even to
Um,
encourage more people to go into it.
and then for young people, there isn't too much money available for startups. They are the riskiest. You don't know whether they will last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? So there needs to be some funding for innovation, for startups, and many of our startups in and I'm still focusing on Lagos anyway, so that let me just restrict to Lagos that actually are looking for funding and from the banks. Those ones that you see that are doing well are actually getting their funding, a lot of it from elsewhere. So you look at the fintechs that we talk about, a lot of their funding came from outside the
Family, friends,
country,
and the rest.
not family friends, so funding from outside, either
Outside
Silicon
the
Valley,
country.
outside the country, either
Can you
Silicon
give an instance
Valley.
of this?
Everybody should go. Google is our friend, but it's
Okay.
there on Google. It's public knowledge.
Okay.
So if you go and look up any of our fintech companies,
Mm.
it's written there, where their seed money came from, who put it up, and so on. We internally, domestically, we need to begin to have those kinds of venture capital funds. We have some. All I'm saying is that we're a country of 200 million people. We're a lot of people.
Mm.
And therefore, the opportunities need to be more for the impact to be felt.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now, I want to believe that majority of us we don't go into business startups not until several years after graduation. Maybe you couldn't secure a white collar job. Then we start looking at the other side. Okay, how can I start practicing entrepreneurship? How can I acquire skills? I want you to advise how can we reflect SMEs into our education system, most especially tertiary institution, whereby people can start thinking of what to do before they step out of the university or the polytechnics.
Okay. Well, it's a good question, but the steps have already been taken. So NUC has made it mandatory for all tertiary institutions to offer entrepreneurship courses. So they all do. Unilag that I'm familiar with has a very good entrepreneurship center. And students right from year one and even their lecturers are involved in the whole entrepreneurship scheme. What I would say about education is that it would be nice for it to start a little earlier, maybe start from secondary school. So they have projects around setting up a business and so on. I was at a, I was at an innovation awards uh, dinner um, by um, an institute of engineers where the 10 the shortlist of 10 included Queen's College, Yaba. And it's not the first time I'm seeing Queen's College girls actually do very well in competitions, particularly around technology and innovation. So I think there should be many more secondary schools that should offer that opportunity to their students. I think that would be a way to answer your question of addressing
The late
this.
startup.
Yeah, because they're already addressing it at tertiary level. So you're already beginning to see, because there's so many of the younger people, some of them who started either thinking about their business in school or they actually started it in school. And they don't wait too long anymore afterwards to begin to think about, because the university has prepared them to start thinking about. So I think we should actually start a bit earlier, maybe from secondary school, to introduce them to innovation and entrepreneurship.
Okay, thank you so much, man. The few schools that are on this, their effort is not reflecting in the society. And I say this because every day you see graduates roaming around the streets of Lagos seeking for job that is not there. What can you tell this category of people on how to move forward?
Well, I think the first advice is to their parents or their guardians not to keep holding them down to look for a job. Because these jobs no longer exist. And it's not a Nigerian phenomenon, it's across the world. The whole push for entrepreneurship is not a Nigerian push, it's across the world, right? So, and post COVID, we have come to a realization that the bedrock of the economy of any country in this world is rooted in SMEs. So, across the world, there is a concern about youth unemployment. Africa is particularly concerning because we have the largest bulge, which means we have the largest population of young people, and therefore unemployment amongst them is not a good omen at all. So I think we have to intensify our efforts. You're right that it's not really showing, and it means that our efforts need to be more. So it's not that people aren't doing anything, it's that what is being done cannot be felt.
Okay.
So it needs to be more. We need
Okay.
to do more, much more of engaging the youth, um, training them, particularly in vocational skills. Because academic bookwork is not what is going to get you into business. So let them get skills around various things. With Lagos State, one of their good examples is LSETF, where they're doing a lot of training in all sectors of the economy that thrive in Lagos State. And they're doing free training for young people. But I think the effort needs to be more.
Okay, it needs to be improved.
It needs to be improved.
Okay. Yes, my next question, ma'am. We can see that it seems there is no good relationship between universities and industries. Sometimes you see our interns or the so-called attachment students being turned back when they approach some industry just to run their few months attachment. And where they are being encouraged, the logistics is not there for them to be going and coming. They just give them assignments, no logistics to support their movement. They ask them to resume in the office. They don't encourage them with anything to move around. What is your opinion on this? How can we get the university and the industry to collaborate better and let it reflect on our children and our graduates that is seeking their support on intern or attachment?
Yes, so I think it's a very complicated matter. Complicated in the sense that, at a general level, we all seem to agree with the general opinion, since when you read the papers, you see there a lot, that our quality of education has actually um, become lower than it used to be. Nigerian degrees are no longer respected abroad. Those who are Japan have to go and study and add some other certificates
When they get there.
when they get there to their Nigerian certificate, because there's no rating for the Nigerian certificate these days. So because the level of the quality of education here in Nigeria has really gone down, it's also affecting our industry. Because if you talk to industry, they will tell you that there are a lot of graduates from some tertiary institutions that are not employable.
Wow.
Right? So there's that, the quality of education. Mhm. But there's also the relevance of education. Our curriculum needs to change. Our university curriculum, it's the curriculum of old, not the curriculum of today. We need to change the way we are educating young people so that they are more oriented to the needs of industry. If you ask a lot of companies, a lot of those who own factories and so on, when they actually take on some of these students, they have to actually train them. Many of them have their own training schools.
And that is
They have
the
to now
purpose.
they have to now, but it's not their job to train.
Okay.
So the education, it's like Nigerian parents now, children in primary school almost all of them are doing lesson after school. So my mother used to frown on, you're not supposed to do lesson after school. You're supposed to learn everything you want to learn in school. What is the teacher coming to do in your parents' house? Do you understand?
I disagree.
It is the lack. It is the lack. This is how it is. You will not go abroad and see teachers doing lesson. There's nothing like that. There are after school programs which add value to the child. Not you come to school to learn what you should have learned between 8 o'clock and 1 or 2 o'clock. You now come, somebody is coming to reinforce what you were supposed to have learned. It's a sign.
Okay.
Right? So it's complicated. That's why I say it's complicated. So there's the fact that quality of education itself has reduced. There's the fact that our curriculum now in the universities, and any university will actually tell you, it needs to be rehashed. We need to think more about, technology is changing rapidly the dynamics of business, right? In fact, in today's world,
we are not moving at that pace.
We're not moving at that pace. In today's world, something you even learned, particularly in IT, something you even learned just last year might be obsolete today because the systems have changed, the technology has changed. So the kinds of things that are now recognized as 21st century skills, like critical thinking, interpersonal skills, there's a whole list of things, right? We all have to be much more engaged with technology, and we must be dynamic with it and use it in our work, right? And then there's all the concern now about AI and how that is going to even change the way we do things. We need to move with the time. So there's the curriculum. And then I think the other factor that's affecting us is that I think that the universities are hampered by funding. They themselves don't have enough funding to provide the kind of facilities that the students require and the kind of compensation or salaries that the teachers within the universities also should be paid. So some thinking needs to go behind how should universities be funded, right? I myself did my master's on a scholarship in the UK, and I know that the university I went to was not waiting for government to give them money. They had to raise their own funds.
Okay.
Right? So professors and lecturers are busy raising money for their various research. They go out and try to engage private sector.
I think that is also applicable here in Nigeria.
Where's the evidence? You were asking me where's the evidence.
Most times they make knows about it, that they've just secure a certain amount.
Did you look at the amount?
No, I'm not them.
So what I'm saying is that the funding is not enough. Okay. If the funding is enough, ASU will not be going on strike. Students will not be thrown out of school.
I think
you will not go into a campus and see archaic facilities. They're struggling to maintain. They're even struggling to maintain, not even to add new ones. Maintain. So it's glaring in our face that funding of our universities is not adequate.
Thank you,
Ma.
Ma.
To think about it.
Thank you, Ma. You just talk about the quality of education in Nigeria. And I'd like to ask you this next question. How can we reposition our education in Nigeria, at least to cater for our immediate needs? Can we just suggest 5 ways we can do this?
Okay, I'm not an educationist. So
you are a global person, and I know you are capable as a consultant to answer any question.
I'm not an educationist, but the first thing we can do to reposition is completely change our curriculum from kindergarten, all the way up to
the
PhDs and whatever it is we're doing. So curriculum
to change our curriculum in totality.
Curriculum needs to be changed in totality. The second is we need to take technology a lot more seriously. So we need to infuse the knowledge around technology into our education system. We need to infuse the use of technology into our educational system so that we now adequately train our teachers.
Okay.
Whether they are teaching primary school or they are teaching university, they need to be better equipped to cope with the challenges of education today.
With today's sincerity.
Today's needs and today's expectations around the education of the students that are in their care. Um,
The third one.
the third one is finance.
Mm.
We need to finance all these things, right? So we need to come up with a more sustainable plan, a sustainability plan for the financing of our education system.
Okay. The
These
fourth
are the
one.
three biggest ones.
Yes, ma'am.
What would the fourth one be? I think the fourth one would speak to your question about what we call the handshake between town and gown, right? So that's the universities and industry.
Mhm.
So I think that on the level of the tertiary institutions, I think we have to find more platforms and more common ground for the academics and industry to intersect or to interact a lot more. There's some efforts that have been done that are quite interesting. Unilag has some good examples, right? So I think we need many more of those interactions between the more private sector can engage with the tertiary institutions in the training of the students that ultimately are going to come out
Okay.
and work with industry, the better the curriculum will become because it then becomes very relevant
Okay.
to what is going on.
When they experience the practical aspect of it.
Yes.
Okay, the fifth one, ma'am.
The fifth one. I think the fifth one is for us to take engagement in strategic partnerships very, very seriously.
How do you
Knowledge
mean?
is universal.
Okay.
Knowledge is universal. So, sometimes we have a problem where teachers here get together, brainstorm, come up with an idea that somebody has already thought about in America 10 years ago.
Wow.
So they're thinking what they're thinking about is something new, but because they are hardly engaging in research, they don't have a lot of infrastructure at their disposal to keep them up to date.
Abreast of information.
Yes, then they find themselves being so many years behind. So even with you and I, when we go online, when we read international papers, we always comment, these people have gone far. That thing, we need to catch up. So I think we need to take strategic partnerships more seriously. Our educational institutions can engage with other educational institutions from more developed regions of the world. They can have exchange programs. They can interact a lot more. I know that when I was much, much, much younger, when our universities were younger than they are now, my parents' time, exchange students in Nigerian universities was a very common thing. Coming from other regions, so then our educational system was seen as one of the best in the world. Nigeria was taking in foreign students.
And the sponsorship support was always there.
I don't know about
From
that.
the government. Yes, I think I know that.
I don't know about that because I know that sponsorship was always a jigsaw like this. It will be there today, it will disappear tomorrow. So it depends on what government is in place. But strategic partnerships with other institutions will help our own institutions to be, as you say, up to date. Okay. And put us in a better position.
Thank you, ma'am. Probably my last question.
Okay.
Ma, if my research is correct, you're a school owner.
Me?
Yes.
I don't own a school.
Okay. Then I want you to advise our school owners, our private school owners, most especially on teaching and learning materials. What do you have to tell them?
Okay. So as a business development consultant, I have done work with educational institutions, so schools, as we call them, whether it's school or university, whether it's primary or secondary, I have actually consulted with them. I also consult with those that provide these learning materials for these schools.
The manufacturers or the sellers?
Publishers. Publishers, the creators of the content. The books are provided by publishers who publish the content. Right? So I remember I can't remember the year, but what are they called? Lantern Books, the publishers of Lantern Books They were turning 40, 4 decades. They were the first indigenous publishing company. The founder of that company is now deceased.
Okay.
He's passed away, unfortunately. I think around the time of COVID. But this publishing house was turning 40 every year, and most of their books are used in primary and secondary school.
Okay.
Their books are very popular. They have a lot of authors, Nigerian authors and writers, producing content for them, and their books are actually approved by state and federal government ministries of education for use. So they normally every year in the month of August they would have, because that's the what do you call it, vacation month. They would normally run capacity building programs for teachers. You know, this year it might be classroom management. Next year it might be something else. But that 40th anniversary, they wanted to run a program for school owners, the group of people that you're asking me about. So they asked me to develop a presentation that I would present to school owners to get them to understand that in setting up a school, they need to set it up for the long term. Schools should outlive their owners. They should be there for many, many years. And to give them advice around sustainability of the school and how that school can thrive. So I created that presentation and I traveled by air and by road to 26 out of 36 states of this country.
For research?
No, delivering presentations.
Delivering
presentations to owners of schools.
Mm.
Right? It was a fantastic experience. In some cities or towns, we would have as little as 70 participants in the room.
What was the experience with
In
them?
other regions, we would have as many as almost 200 of them in the room. And the experience varied depending on where I was, whether I was in Southwest or Southeast or North Central or Northeast or Northwest. You know, the experience, you would see the diverse nature of Nigeria and how one size does not fit everybody. You cannot have one rule for everybody. But one thing that was clear to me was that for those running schools, many seem to enter into it as a social enterprise. So it's a social development thing.
To make good money?
No, to impact children.
Okay.
So because of that, they fail to plan, to have a financial plan. Right? So they are always finding themselves short of money because they are not thinking of their schools as a business. They are thinking of it as a social development engagement. People need to be educated. Children need to be educated. So I'm setting up a school and I'm going to educate these children so that they will have a good future, in the future. And there is no financial plan around, okay, if I want to have a school, if it's a primary school, how am I rolling out? Is it all classes at the same time? Am I going to do it each year, establish a new class? When I'm doing that, do I start with primary 1, primary 2, primary 3? What should the school fees be? If the school fees is this amount, how much can I afford to pay the teachers? What kind of material do I need to make available? I found that in some regions of Nigeria, they don't even understand copyright. They don't understand that by photocopying books, they're actually breaking the law. So they will buy one book and then photocopy 100 copies, 200
the rest
copies.
Of the class.
The rest of the class and the rest of the years until you cannot see. You're looking at the book
print
and you cannot
anymore.
see the print anymore. With no idea that they're breaking the law. The issues around adequate compensation. So because they're in this social development enterprise, and they are not willing a lot are not willing to pay adequate compensation. It's not an attitude of the schools alone, it's a general attitude of SMEs. And we don't like paying for labor, right? We underpay generally.
Okay.
And say they will learn on the job, you underpay. And because they're learning on the job and you're underpaid, you're never going to get the best out of them. Right?
You keep on retraining.
No, they don't train at all. Which SME do you know that is training?
When they come in, they will learn on the job. So
that is
when
not
they
training.
learn, okay.
That is not training. Learning on the job is not training. So that being on the job, for it to work as training, there must be the follow-up, induction, refreshers. They must have somebody who's supervising and coaching. It's a whole plethora of things that must be going on for that person to become the kind of employee that you're looking for, right? So we come back to schools. They don't train the teachers. They don't pay them well, right? And then and the excuse will be the reason they will give away. How much am I even making? But that's how much am I even making? Did you even have a financial plan so that you understand how much it is costing you to run the school? So that if you actually want to make a profit, in order to make further and consistent investment in your school so that it gets better, the quality goes up, it gets bigger, it admits more students. Is there a plan? There's no plan.
And
it's
finance
from year
is a key
to year.
aspect.
It's a very, very key aspect. So if they want to do what you are asking around learning material, they actually must have a plan. If you don't have that plan, it limits you as the owner of the school for what you can even afford. Right? And that is when you start to break laws you're not aware you are breaking by photocopying everything. Photocopying everything, and then some people are so empathic, they feel the pain of the people, they feel the pain of the parents. They set up a school in an environment where they don't even have money to pay school fees. So you're now in a place where people cannot even afford the education, right? But you want to do something, good. So I found that was where I heard for the first time. This is over 10 years ago. I heard for the first time. I had to ask this person, because they will ask me question and answer. I had to ask her, so how much are you charging for school fees? He said the children pay daily. At that time, it was 50 naira they were paying every Monday. I said, daily? I said, I've never heard of it. He said, yes, so man, since they cannot pay the whole school fees, the day the child shows up, you pay 50 naira. The day the child doesn't show up,
on a rainy day like this, it will
if
be
the
an
child
empty
doesn't
classroom.
then she doesn't have to expend money. So there's all that. Now, but the point is, there are some, I had to say to this person, there are some things that are what you call overhead. So your teacher has to be paid at the end of the month. It's not the children came, I will pay you. The children didn't come, I will not pay you. So you have some running cost. You will still pay your NEPA bill. You will still pay for certain things, right? So you really need to have a financial plan. And I said, so what we should do here? Then I said, okay. So you now find that they don't have account. No bank account for the school. The account of the school is either her own account or the husband's account. So that the day she wants to go to market and she needs to do some vegetable soup, and Oga did not give enough money, enough chop money. It's from that school account she's going to go and buy. So you find things like this going on in some parts of the country, all the way to those that run their schools properly. But you find that those that are actually running their schools properly, providing the materials you want them to provide, and providing the sort of quality of education, they're expensive. Because the cost of doing business in Nigeria is expensive. They have to buy diesel to make sure the light is 24 hours. They have to maintain equipment. They are introducing technology. That one has a cost.
Employing a good teacher.
Employing good teachers.
It has been a beautiful afternoon, ma'am.
Thank you.
I thank you so much. And I do appreciate your efforts for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
It's been
ma'am.
a pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.